Welcome to FCS Delivered, where our college football marathon is now a sprint. I'm Craig Haley, along with our co-host, Gary Reasons, the three-time All-American from Northwestern State on the FCS level. How you doing today, Gary?
Well, it's a great day, Craig. You know, we're on the morning after the national presidential election, and boy, did you stay up last night and watch a lot of that? I did, and I'm a little groggy, but I'm going to get through this.
I did stay up, but I'm groggy every day, so that probably didn't matter that I was up late. Now, Gary, our producers are Seth, Biley, and Graham Bell. In this week's episode, we will do a lot of the same things we always do. We will look ahead to the big games ahead. We will do FCS National Awards on campus. Now, you know I can be a little long-winded in the first segment here. Today, I won't be. We'll look back a little bit, but we're not going to take too much time on that because we have a special guest, Matt Larsen, who is the Playoff Selection Committee Chair for the FCS Playoffs, which is coming up. The pairing's on November 24th. But before we get to talking with Matt, Gary, last week, our FCS game of the week turned out to be a good one. UT Martin, 28-21, over then number 25, Tennessee State. What did you think of this game?
UT Martin played their tails off. There's no doubt about that. And it's something we talked about it. We kind of set the game up a week ago, and it was one that, was going to be a fun ball game. And so it did not disappoint fans who watched the ball game. And I think it put our top 25 poll kind of in another element, because it's really, we're looking at these teams that, when you have these matchups late in the season where quality teams are right there at the top of our poll, and then all of a sudden they play on the field, it just kind of shakes things up, but it really defines really where your team is. And I think it's pretty good.
There was some shaking up because this was the storyline of the whole week, that unranked teams beat ranked teams in conference play. There were 7 of them, including UT Martin, which was just outside the top 25. Especially in the United Athletic Conference, where number 7 Tarleton State lost to Eastern Kentucky. Number 11 Central Arkansas lost to a winless Utah Tech team in conference. Just phenomenal results once you're in conference play. Didn't have too much impact at the top of our top 25 poll. North Dakota State still number 1, Gary. Montana State 2, South Dakota State 3, and UC Davis 1 at number 4. SEMO and South Dakota were on buys. But it's certainly an interesting top 25 at this point in the year, Gary.
Yeah, it really is. And those teams that you mentioned there, Craig, at the top of the list, we've watched them all grow this season, and they all are just continuing to find ways to win and really make their teams better. And I think we're ready for a great finish.
Okay. Well, I promised you I wouldn't take too long talking today, Gary, because we want to get to our special guest here on FCS Delivered, Matt Larsen, who is the athletic director of North Dakota State. This time of the year, he also puts on another hat. He's the selection committee chair for the playoffs, his 4th and final season on the committee. The playoff selection show will be on ESPNU on November 24th, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, where 10 automatic bids will go to conference champions, 14 at-large selections that Matt and his committee will be selecting. Matt, we do appreciate you joining us today. And first question, can you assess where the selection committee stands going into the final 3 weeks of the regular season?
Well, Craig and Gary, first of all, thanks for having me on, and just appreciate all the work you do on behalf of FCS football. I know I like to tune in every week and hear the analysis, but really just real appreciative of what you all do. As the committee heads in, was it a week and a half ago, we released our public top 10. And so that was a really good process as we went through kind of a full mock selection. And there's a lot of changes this year with the bracket and the selection, with seeding the top 16. And so we meet from really week 8 on up until selection weekend. We meet 3 times a week with our regional advisory committee. We meet twice as a national committee. We rank our own internal top 25. And what's interesting and what's neat, and every year poses a little bit different situation, is there's still a lot of really important games to be played at this point. And I think, Gary, you mentioned that in the open, is, there's a lot of games here in week 11 and 12 that are going to impact where we end up in Indianapolis in a couple of weeks. So, which is great, and a lot of great games still ahead of us. But the committee's excited, and we've had a lot of great conversations and debates, and there's a lot of good football teams out there right now.
Well, you mentioned that top 10 public reveal last week. We would all love to see multiple sets going forward. Will that ever happen?
That's a great question. And I think a lot of it is, I think the feedback from the fans, I think the feedback from FCS media was really positive. And so I think those are things that we'll continue to look at as a committee. And are there opportunities as we get closer after that first to maybe do another one as we head into selection weekend? And so I think that's definitely open for conversation. Again, the more people can be talking about FCS football throughout the season, I think the better. And so that's something we'll take back to the committee and put that under consideration.
Matt, doubling the number of seeded teams you have from 8 to 16 is kind of expected to make the pairings a lot more seemingly national and really kind of less regionalized. Can you kind of describe that impact?
Well, that was definitely the goal, and a lot of credit goes to NCAA staff who supported this, I think, from day one. A lot of our conference commissioners, national media, athletic directors, head coaches, I think all saw the value in seeding 16 and trying to get away from that regionalization of a championship as best we can and trying to make it as much of a national championship. And I think seeding the top 16 is a huge step in that direction. We'll still have in that first round, there will still be some regionalization principles in those first rounds, but assuming the top 16 put in bids and have the ability to host, they're going to get a chance to host. And I think more than anything, it puts value back into the regular season. If you truly earn a seed, you're going to have that path to get to the national championship game, whether you're the 1 seed, the 8, the 9, or the 16. And so I think it's really, really positive for an already great championship that we have in FCS football.
Now, if the committee adjusts the seed to kind of spread out teams, for a conference specifically, are the schools involved? Are they in that scenario going to be informed of a seed adjustment?
Probably not. And so really what we've talked about as a committee is once you get 1 through 8, that's locked in. There aren't going to be any adjustments there, just as historically there haven't been any. As we get into 9 through 16, there still are some principles that we want to make sure, like, for example, if there's more than 4 teams from one league on one side of the bracket, we may make a change to make that adjustment. But I think the biggest thing for folks to understand is we're not going to take somebody who we voted in as a 10 seed and move them to the 15 line just because it may make sense. We're gonna try to respect those seeds. We're gonna respect people's resumes and how they were voted in. So there might be one adjustment from one line to one up or one down. But certainly the top 8 are going to stay, and that's not our goal. If we can keep 16 where they are, we definitely want to do that. And there could be some slight modifications, but hopefully it doesn't get to that.
Matt, speaking of that, the 1 through 16, it may change things in this regard. Let me ask you this. Now you'll have a true 15 or 16 seed, where maybe in the past, teams in that kind of position, even though you didn't have them considered 15 or 16 teams, maybe a team like a Montana, who you knew was going to be bidding and winning a bid for a first round host game, or second round even. Maybe if they were 15 or 16 then, you had reservations as a committee to put them in the field knowing that they could win a bid and be a host when really they were like the 15th or 16th seed. Is this a straight seed kind of make it easier to put those, evaluate those last few teams and say, hey, this team is the 15th or 16th seed and really they'll be going on the road?
Absolutely. And that's what's great about it. And so while schools are still going to submit bids, and as long as they meet the minimum bid level for each round, if they're a seed, they'll have the opportunity to host then. And that was intentional because now it truly is based on your performance on field and really takes the bidding process out of it. And so I think that is positive. And because, there's been the way our FCS is distributed across the country, way more FCS programs east of the Mississippi, less on the west side. And so you didn't always have, if you're the 1 seed or the 2 seed, in that second round, there was really no guarantee that you were playing a 15 or 16 seed team. A lot of times it could have been stronger. And so I think this will help a lot with that. It'll also take out the bidding process. And if you truly earned a seed and you put in a bid that meets the minimums, you're going to have the opportunity to host.
Okay, Matt, going to put you on the hot seat here. So committee members, they're given the freedom to evaluate a team's resumes, kind of as they see fit. So really, what are your individual methods of evaluating a team's resume?
That's a great question. And I still, and this is something that I've stressed with our committee members, and I think we all do a really good job of. To me, at the end of the day, we'll have all these metrics. To me, nothing is better than actually watching games. And so we have the opportunity to watch a ton of games, whether it's the NCAA, they cut up a certain number of games. If we're evaluating some at-large teams, they'll cut up those games and condense it from 3 hours to 15 minutes. But also we have access to ESPN Plus. We have access to Flow Sports to be able to watch CAA games, all the FCS games. And I really encourage our committee members, and they do a great job of getting on there and actually watching those. So it brings the resume to life a little bit more. So that's something that's really important for me. And then really, I think the strength of schedule is something that is always important to me. You can have a really strong schedule. If you don't win those games, then you're probably not going to get an opportunity. So being able to, how you perform in the schedule that you have is critically important to me, as well as I evaluate those teams and quality wins, bad losses. Is a team getting stronger as the season goes on, or are they starting to kind of fall off? Those are things from my perspective that are really important.
You mentioned how you evaluate there the kind of at-large stuff, and strength of schedule is one thing, but strength of conference play with at-large selections, how does that impact it?
Yeah, and I think we've always said a school can't change their conference schedule. That is what it is, and so I think there is some level of non-conference, who you schedule a non-conference, and being able to maybe bolster your resume because you're going to play some teams that are going to build your strength of schedule. And I think we've seen that from some teams that are in the current top 10 or top 25 who were really aggressive from a non-conference standpoint and were able to bolster their strength of schedule through that process. And so I always say scheduling is really, really important when it comes to trying to set up your team for an at-large. In the event you don't win your AQ, here's the way you can set up your team for an at-large. And I know we do that here at NDSU, is looking at, we're going to have a really tough conference schedule, but what do we need to do from a non-conference standpoint to keep our strength of schedule really high?
Matt, one last question here. How about, is there anything that you as the selection committee chair would want to see added or changed with the selection process?
We've made some modifications, which has been great, and that's where I've been really fortunate. Ty Halpin, Alyssa Rice, Antonio Cannavaro, there are NCAA liaisons. The 4 years I've been on it, we've had 10 really, really sharp administrators who I think really care about this process. And we've made some modifications, whether it's been the addition of metrics this year, whether it's been how we go about the process, Indianapolis, and selecting seed pools and voting teams into the bracket to make sure that we're keeping as much of the knowledge base in the room as we can, but also not having any sort of conflict of interest. So we've done some really good things there. It'll be interesting this year, first year, top 16 seeded, how that plays out, how the process plays out. And I'm sure there'll be some takeaways that we'll look at and say, hey, we could maybe do this differently. We could do that differently. But all in all, I think it's a great championship. ESPN has really stepped up their coverage from a linear perspective, and all the way through from the first round all the way through to the national championship. And again, I just think that speaks to where this championship is, where the level of and quality of FCS football is across the country.
Well, Matt, I think Gary is familiar with Monday Night Football, and this year the FCS obviously has the championship game on a Monday night, January 6th. But there's a lot of great action headed before you get to that game. That we're looking forward to the 24-team selection pairings on November 24th. We're looking forward to a great playoff. We do appreciate you joining us for today's episode of FCS Delivered. Matt Larsen. We will take a break from FCS Delivered, and we will be back for our second segment.
Bring rings to beach wedding.
FedEx presents Tall Tales of True Deliveries.
Just another day on the job.
We did this for love. See what we can do for your business. FedEx.
Welcome back to FCS Delivered, our second segment. That was a lot of fun, that interview, and very informative with Matt Larsen. But now let's move on to Gary's visit this week for the FCS National Awards on campus. 7 weekly awards. Gary picks one where he goes out and visits. 5 from Stats Reform and 2 from Urban Edge Network's HBCU streaming service each Monday on TheAnalyst.com. Gary, tell us about this week's visit.
Well, I told you at the top of the show, I'm in the state of Pennsylvania, so a little bit of a clue there. But I'm just outside of Pittsburgh. Moon Township is where I went to Robert Morris University. And I tell you, I was really enlightened to be at this university because it houses a program, Craig, that plays great, great defense. Craig, this university, their season, they have 3 defensive shutouts. That's right, 3 defensive shutouts. They had one a week ago, and they were tremendous. So fantastic work by them. They beat Merrimack to get that 3rd shutout. And this program is run by head coach Bernard Clark Jr., and he is a tremendous head coach. He's a former NFL player, and they've got a big game coming up against Duquesne, which is right there on that board, and they're getting laser focused to be a big factor in that ball game. They're right in position to be at the top of the NEC, and that's exactly what they want to do. They were in the SoCon a year ago, back to the NEC where they've been previously, and they have done a nice job of molding this team together, offensively, defensively. They don't do too much. They try to keep it within themselves, and they just play with a lot of effort. And I think this football team, Craig, is one that is really you're going to have to look at down the road. There are going to be some surprises if they can get an at-large or something into the playoffs, maybe get a bid. This is a team that possibly could, make some noise. I think it's a fun group of guys to watch, and I really enjoyed talking to these guys. I was joined by Krista McKinnon from FedEx, their HR advisor, and also Jessica Dunkel from their management of talent acquisition. And we were able to talk to the guys about post-career opportunities with our partner FedEx. And this is when I had a chance to visit with the team on the field. And you know what? These guys were all ears, and they really accepted the award well.
So on behalf of Stats Perform and our partners, FedEx and Urban Edge Network, I'd like to present to Robert Morris University as our FCS National Team of the Week. Here we go, guys.
Well, I'm joined there by the coach and their quarterback, Anthony Chickett. Good job, and he's done a nice job leading that team as a quarterback. And Greg, this is it's a good football team. It's a very structured program. Coach Clark has got some history and success. He was on the '90s championship team down in Miami with a guy we know a little bit about from FedEx, our partner there. So we have a guy who we have a little bit of in knowledge about those guys, and he brought that tutelage and that knowledge there. He played in the NFL as well, so a great job by Robert Morris getting that 3rd shutout. And they're going to play great defense throughout the rest of the season. I think that they've got a bright future here towards as we get close to the playoffs.
Well, Carlos Etheridge of FedEx would certainly be proud of Bernard Clark and his team. I was there in 2010 at Robert Morris when they clinched the NEC's first automatic bid to the FCS playoffs. They beat Central Connecticut State. There's a big game coming up. I'm sure there's a buzz on campus about playing for the title, perhaps.
Yeah, there is. There's a little bit of fall mist in the air. You kind of see things. Actually, yesterday was kind of all business in regards to the election, and are they going to be able to go vote? Can they get there, and those kinds of things. But the coaches, they said, hey, put all that in the rearview mirror. We got to focus on football, and they got to work on the field, as you saw. We got a chance to visit with some of their practice, and excuse me. And it was just a pleasure to see these guys work hard and really get focused on what's ahead of them.
Robert Morris Colonials, they're our Stats Reform FCS Team of the Week. You can find all 7 award winners on TheAnalyst.com every Monday. So it's a pleasure to see you go visit the Colonials. We're going to take a break from FCS Delivered, Gary, and when we come back, we'll have our Pick'em segment. Welcome back to FCS Delivered. Gary and I like to make picks of the big games of the week. We're into week 11, and we always enjoy when we have different picks. Gary, let's go to our first game of the week. UC Davis, number 4, co-leader in the Big Sky at Montana. It's a 4 versus 7 matchup. Doesn't get any bigger than that. 10:15 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. What do you think of this game, Gary?
It is a big game. It is a game of 2 heavyweights that I think are both teams are playing tremendous football. But Craig, I'm going to talk about UC Davis and really what they've done over the course of the season. And I think that their head coach, first year head coach, Tim Plow, is really doing a pretty nice job there out with this program. And, he's got a quarterback, Miles Hastings. He's number 4 in the FCS. He's got 311 yards passing per game. they've got a star at the running back position. We've talked about him for the last couple of seasons. Matt Larsen, 1,500 yards from scrimmage. Go figure that. And the linebacker play from David Myers is just tremendous. I've got to take UC Davis in this football game, Craig, over Montana. And I think they're just finding a way to win football games, and that's what it's all about, although Montana is going to give them one heck of a fight.
Well, I won't just talk about Montana. I will pick the Grizz as my pick here in the game of the week. Obviously, they're the defending champ in the Big Sky, and a little bit of a rough start this year, but they've come on strong, Gary. 3 straight wins, and they've only given up 2 offensive touchdowns in those wins. This is a big step up, though, who they're playing, UC Davis, but they are at home. Obviously, they'll have a sellout at Washington Grizzly Stadium. Logan Fife is so efficient behind center. And, of course, they have the running backs, Eli Gilman, our Jerry Rice Award winner, Nick Ostma. They're both out off to big starts, 650-plus yards each. Junior Bergen is the one to fear, of course. He had his 6th career punt return touchdown last week, only 2 off the all-time record, and it's a Big Sky record. All right, I will go with the Grizz because we do like when we have differences. But let me go to another one. This could have been the game of the week because we're going back to the Steel City where you're at. Robert Morris, our team of the week, is going to Duquesne, 18 miles apart. But boy, this is bringing together 2 great teams.
Yeah, a couple of teams here on the outskirts of the city of Pittsburgh, and it's really going to be a fun matchup. Both teams undefeated in conference play. We talked about that at the top of the show, and it is really a fun atmosphere. Obviously, I had a chance to visit with the guys at RMU, so I kind of see them as a team that I know a little bit about. So I'm going to take Robert Morris University in this one on the road, although it's not far, to be winning this football game. I think what Coach Clark is doing with this football team is really good, and their defense with 3 shutouts behind them, I think they're going to ball it.
Ooh, it's a great game. I'm going to go with Duquesne at home, Gary. I mean, Jerry Schmidt's got the most consistent program in the NEC. They're the defending champions. Darius Parentas has really picked it up behind center this year. He's so much more efficient. They have a running game, a passing game, and obviously they play defense. Robert Morris has an outstanding defense, as you mentioned earlier, but I'm going to go with Duquesne. I just think it's certainly a matchup that could go either way. Now, we have a lot of great games this week. The first 2 we mentioned are our only differences, but you could go down that list. There are just great games everywhere. I think that Rhode Island at Delaware game is ultra important and ultra interesting in the CAA. I know you're going to be watching all the games. What are you looking forward to in Week 11, Gary?
Well, let's go to the bottom there. Let's look at Western Carolina and East Tennessee State University, 2 teams that I've visited this season. And, I think I have fond memories and thoughts about both programs, but I think that Western Carolina is going to get it done. I think their offense is going to be explosive in this game. I've got to go with Western Carolina in that one, Craig, and that's the game I'm going to kind of focus in on here as the weekend approaches us.
Well, as long as there's somebody playing quarterback for Western Carolina, that ball is going downfield. 2 different quarterbacks have already thrown for over 400 yards. Just tremendous storyline with the Catamounts. I agree. It's a great game. I'm going to go at Western Carolina just like you. But this should be a tremendous game. We wish you safe travels getting back home. Anything of note that you'll be doing this weekend?
Probably take a little bit of rest. Been out quite a bit, and this might be my one open weekend of the whole entire college football season of them not doing something, joining the Giants or doing something broadcast wise. So I have an open weekend, which is really pretty cool. So I'll have a chance to watch some FCS games and really a lot of college football throughout the weekend. Well, Election Day has passed here in the United States, but FCS Election Day is fast approaching, as we talked earlier with Matt Larsen, the selection committee chair for the FCS playoffs. Gary, I hope you have a great week enjoying the games. Safe travels, and we thank everybody for tuning in to FCS Delivered. Enjoy the week, everybody.